your studio. By the way, you get to be a guest on my show coming up later tonight. Give you time to breathe and collect yourself after a great show. Good show tonight. Congrats on the new book, by the way.
Thank you.
All right, Tucker, thank you. Welcome to Hannity. I am not overstating this. This is literally now a tipping point in American history. Democrats, the media, they have no shame. Zero restraint, zero concern for truth, zero concern for innocent lives that they are all too willing to destroy, all for political power. That's more important than what is truth and justice. Now we have one party in this country. It's about smears, slander, besmirchment, bludgeoning, and the media in this country, they are the willing accomplices, and we've got the evidence tonight. They're using every dirty trick in the book to run out the clock on Judge Kavanaugh's nomination. Last week, they got their wish. The FBI performing a background check into allegations against Judge Kavanaugh, his 7th background check. But already, they've moved the goalposts almost instantaneously. They want more investigations, longer investigations, and guess what? They're now testing out brand new accusations in the mainstream media. What they're forgetting here is this is a real man's life, a real family, real kids. For them, it's just a political game, a quest for power, an attempt to wait it out for 36 days until the all-important midterm elections. We're going to break all of this down with all the information you need, including a report from the independent prosecutor who questioned both Kavanaugh and Professor Ford. She's calling the allegations weak, uncorroborated. We also have a message tonight for Dianne Feinstein, whose dirty tricks are now being investigated. And as per usual, disgraced former FBI Director James Comey, he's trying to weigh in from the sidelines and once again siding with all his friends in the Democratic Party. And a brand new NBC interview, an unmitigated disaster on so many levels. So sit tight, buckle up. It's time for our DC opening monologue. All right, if you are the average American that works hard, plays by the rules, pays their taxes, raises their kids, and serves the country every day, providing goods and services, good Americans need to step back tonight. This isn't about Republican, Democrat, conservative, or liberal at all. With no due process, zero corroborating evidence, the left in America is now smearing an individual, and they've been doing it now for 15 consecutive days, calling him evil, accusing him of being a serial rapist, a sexual predator, a violent drunk, a liar, a perjurer, and much more. Classic character assassination of a man who has served his country and has been in the spotlight now for almost 40 years without a single whiff of misconduct until 15 days ago. As we Americans now, we better get this as a country right, because a collective rush to judgment, getting rid of all presumption of innocence and due process, it is a clear and present danger to all of you, to every American. And tonight at a huge rally in Johnson City, Tennessee, President Trump stood up for his Supreme Court nominee and the pillar of what is America's justice system, the presumption of innocence. Let's watch the president.
Democrats are willing to do anything and to hurt anyone to get their way, like they're doing with Judge Kavanaugh. They've been trying to destroy him since the very first second he was announced, because they know that Judge Kavanaugh will follow the Constitution as written. That he's a good man, great student, great intellect. Never had a problem. All of a sudden, oh, let's go back to high school. They maybe should go before high school. And then they want to take a lot longer with the FBI. No, the FBI, they should take, by the way, if we took 10 years, they'd want more time.
So here we are, day 15. The Democrats are attempting to stop Judge Kavanaugh at all costs. And by the way, at a wild press conference earlier today, the president let loose, had this to say about the important process that the media and Democrats, they're trying to now upend. This is dangerous, but he took it on. Take a look.
I want the FBI, this is now their 7th investigation, so it's not like they're, just starting. I want them to do a very comprehensive investigation, whatever that means according to the senators and the Republicans and the Republican majority. I want them to do that. And the reason I'd like it to go quickly, very simple. It's so simple. Because it's unfair to him at this point. What his wife is going through, what his beautiful children are going through, is not describable. It's not describable. It's not fair.
Now, of course, Kavanaugh's vote was once again delayed last week because the left successfully coerced one notoriously flaky Republican senator to go along with their demands. A new background check into the allegations made by Professor Christine Ford, limited in scope, only a week. This weekend, Senator Jeff Flake sat down with one of his Democratic colleagues on 60 Minutes to pat himself on the back for his heroic stance. He was out running for president in Massachusetts earlier today, but he did admit in the interview if he was seeking re-election, he never would have done this, ever, and caved to the Democratic demands. He's now their hero. Take a look.
You've announced that you're not running for re-election, and I wonder, could you have done this if you were running for re-election?
No, not a chance.
Not a chance.
No.
Because politics has become too sharp, too partisan.
Yeah, there's no value to reaching across the aisle. There's no currency for that anymore. There's no incentive.
I just lie like I always did. Now, tonight, the FBI's background check into Professor Ford. These are all important facts we've got to remember. It is well underway. But Rachel Mitchell, remember the independent prosecutor hired by the Senate Judiciary Committee to question both Professor Ford and Judge Kavanaugh? Well, she has already released her report to the Senate Judiciary Committee. In these findings, they're devastating. This is what she says. A he said, she said case is incredibly difficult to prove, but this case is even weaker than that. Dr. Ford identified other witnesses to the event, and those witnesses either refuted her allegations or failed to corroborate them. Now, for the reasons discussed below, I do not think any reasonable prosecutor would bring this case based on the evidence before the committee. And the prosecutor went on to list multiple issues where Professor Ford's accusations, including no consistent account of when the alleged assault actually happened, a failure to previously identify Judge Kavanaugh as the assailant, inconsistent descriptions of the alleged assault, a failure to remember key details, including who invited Ford to the party, how she got to the party, where the party even took place, and how she got home from the party. She does, however, remember unrelated details like the consumption of exactly one beer and that she took no medication that day. Another issue listed by prosecutors surrounds the fact that Ford's allegations have been corroborated by nobody, including a lifelong friend. And Dr. Ford also struggled to recall recent events related to her accusation, including the date of her polygraph test. Now, there are also inconsistencies with Ford's psychological trauma claims, including her alleged fear of flying. Now, despite the fact that she flies frequently, and many of her hobbies involve flying all over the world. And Rachel Mitchell also reported, quote, the activities of congressional Democrats and Dr. Ford's attorneys likely affected Dr. Ford's account. It is important to remember that Senator Feinstein, and this is where we get into facts matter, corroboration matters. She mentioned these four people. None of them corroborated her story, including an alleged eyewitness to the incident. And Dianne Feinstein played politics with Professor Ford's very serious claims from the very beginning. She knew about this in July. And last week, Senate Democrats demanding an FBI investigation. But Feinstein and her colleagues have known about this, as I said, since July. Where's their calls for an investigation into Keith Ellison? Or for that matter, Juanita Broderick and Bill Clinton? Why didn't Senator Feinstein ask Kavanaugh about these allegations when they met personally? Well, why at the very same time she's advising Professor Ford on what attorney to hire, instead of contacting her with a qualified, experienced, nonpartisan lawyer? Well, Feinstein suggested what turns out to be a partisan left-winger, big-time Democratic donor named Deborah Katz, once proclaimed on national TV she would resist President Trump. She dismissed Paula Jones. Well, it was only 10 to 12 minutes. Excuse me. He exposed himself, Bill Clinton, at the time. That was the allegation. And then she defended creepy Senator Al Franken. And according to a report from the Washington Free Beacon tonight, one of Katz's close friends is now searching for anyone willing to come forward against Kavanaugh. They're sending out emails to people, literally soliciting people as late as last week. Now, if Feinstein cared about getting to the truth, why suggest a Democratic hack that's inconsistent on what is a serious issue today? And meanwhile, even though Professor Ford requested her name remain private, it was leaked because congressional Democrats were the only officials with access to her story, and Senate Republicans are now vowing, rightly so, to investigate Dianne Feinstein and the Democrats' handling of this case. Of course, Senator Feinstein is denying any responsibility for the leaks, but earlier today, President Trump called out the senator for her shameless political tactics, and they were shameless. Take a look.
Dianne Feinstein knew about this 2 months earlier. If she wanted a really thorough investigation, we had all the time in the world. She didn't have to wait till after the hearing was closed, essentially. She should have said, listen, I have a problem. I have this report. I'd like the FBI to look at it while we're doing the hearings. We had 2 months for the Democrats to be talking about we want more time for the FBI. If you wanted more time for the FBI, why didn't Dianne Feinstein bring this up?
Why didn't she? America deserves an answer to that question. And why didn't she tell her Republican colleagues and then say, oh, we need time. We can't rush this. We had plenty of time. And Democrats are continuing their political stall tactics. Last week, it was a narrow investigation, limited to only a week. Now, despite President Trump ordering the FBI to investigate any and all legitimate claims, it's still not enough for the left. They want FBI investigations into every single claim made against Kavanaugh, no matter how unsubstantiated. And some are even calling for investigations into whether or not Kavanaugh lied about how much he drank in high school. He said sometimes he drank a lot, like a lot of kids in high school and college. Now, that's called moving the goalposts. That's called changing the game in the middle of it. And as we've been saying for months, they want to stall the nomination. They want the midterm elections. These facts all matter because 36 days, we, the people, do you want to put these people in power? They want to impeach the president, endless investigation. They want their crumbs back. They want open borders, and they want to keep Obamacare. Of course, if the FBI does extend the investigation into the second accuser, then the third accuser, well, we already know about the second accuser, and we find, again, unsubstantiated claims from a woman who's claiming that Kavanaugh may have exposed himself to her at a drunken college party when he was a college freshman. She doesn't really remember. In fact, she said she wasn't totally sure if Kavanaugh was the perpetrator. She called around, according to the New York Times, to see if they remembered the incident, whether it was him. They did not. And she even acknowledges that she has significant memory gaps from that evening. New York Times refused to report the story because of the lack of evidence. Then, of course, is the third accuser. Her name is Julie Swetnick. In this case, the FBI is likely to find a lot of inconsistencies from her wild allegations. Remember, she's claiming Kavanaugh was involved in the serial drugging and gang rape scheme in the 80s that happened almost every weekend. And she went to 10 of these parties. And today, Swetnick, represented by the all-fame-seeking attorney Michael Avenatti, the new face of the Democratic Party, sat down with NBC News in what turned out for NBC by the end of the day to be a disaster. Take a look.
In that statement, Swetnick said she became aware of efforts by Kavanaugh and his friend Mark Judge to spike punch at parties. In our interview, she said she saw them near the punch, but did not specifically say she saw either man spike it.
Did you see Brett Kavanaugh, spiking the punch, putting green alcohol in the punch? I saw him giving red Solo cups to quite a few girls during that time frame. I saw him around the punch, I won't say bowls, or the punch containers. I don't know what he did, but I saw him buy them.
Are there friends who remember these parties too and remember you?
Oh, I think everybody in the county remembers those parties.
Because we haven't heard from those friends, so I'm asking, are there people alive today who would say, I went to those parties with
Yes,
Julie?
there are people that know about those parties.
This morning, Swetnick provided 4 names of friends she says went to the parties with her. One of them said he does not recall a Julie Swetnick. Another of the friends she named is deceased. We've reached out to the other 2 and haven't heard back.
Still zero corroboration. The same NBC News that sat on that interview with Juanita Broderick when she was making rape allegations about Bill Clinton, they refused to air it for over a month, all because they said it couldn't be corroborated. They needed time to vet it. NBC this is a disgrace. This is not news. This is them letting an individual make uncorroborated claims and then just airing it. Here they are running totally unverified, uncorroborated claims against Judge Kavanaugh, and multiple inconsistencies yet again. Are there any new standards over there? Should we at all be surprised? This is now an unmitigated disaster for NBC News. By the way, Tom Brokaw, if you're watching or somebody calls you in 3 minutes, would you air this? You need to speak out publicly. You spent your whole life trying to build that brand. All three of these stories do have one thing in common: zero corroborating evidence, outright denials of so-called witnesses, and many inconsistencies. After all, this is how your mainstream media is now treating the ongoing Supreme Court battle. This weekend, a cartoonist drew this vile depiction of Judge Kavanaugh's young daughter praying for her, quote, angry, lying, alcoholic father for sexually assaulting Dr. Ford. Never made it into a newspaper. The cartoonist published it online on his own. Didn't return our request for comment. Shocking. And then there's the media darling, James Comey. He, of course, is calling for an unlimited time frame for FBI investigations and bashing anybody, get this, who won't sit down with FBI investigators, writing, quote, most people will speak to the FBI. Refusal to do so is its own kind of statement. And I'm thinking, really? Ask General Flynn and George Papadopoulos about speaking to the FBI. That literally worked out perfect for them. In the case of even General Flynn, they didn't think he lied. He was charged with lying. Now, when you see all these anti-Kavanaugh op-eds and people like Jim Comey asking for more information, when you see the media rushing to judgment, when you see Democrats demanding more and more investigations, you've got to remember this one clear point, and this is what matters tonight. This is all about politics. It's now about power. It's not about the truth. Democrats have been against Kavanaugh publicly from the day he was announced. No matter what this investigation finds, they're never going to vote for him anyway. They never were. It's likely every single important event in modern history. This is a matter that we better get right. If you don't have evidence and you're going to rush to judgment and you're going to have zero presumption of innocence, by the way, this is not the first time. Ferguson, Missouri, Richard Jewell, Baltimore, Maryland, Cambridge police, Duke lacrosse, UVA rape allegations, now Judge Kavanaugh, Clarence Thomas. We have a party of smear, slander, lies, and no due process. None. This shouldn't be political. And all their left-wing friends in the mainstream media, the deep state, are backing them up all along the way. There is no life they're not willing to destroy for power. No reputation they won't defile. No process they won't corrupt at this point. No issue they won't politicize. And that means there's no shame. Their actions are literally, as we speak, reprehensible. And we've got a lot to get to tonight. He has been in the forefront of all of this. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. Senator, welcome. It's good to be back in your hometown.
Speaking of reprehensible, here's Lindsey. How you doing?
No. I didn't mean that at all.
No.
To me, this is serious. You made a deal on Friday. What was the deal Friday?
Okay, so here's the deal. Senator Flake voted yes in the committee with the understanding that he would like the FBI to interview the 3 Ford witnesses that were interviewed by the Republicans on the committee. Democrats wouldn't help us. It's PJ. Miss Leland, what's her
best friend?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Mark Judge. Let's see. Lisa Murkowski said, I'd like the FBI to kind of check the committee's homework. And we also agreed to interview Ms. Ramirez, the allegation not printed by the New York Times.
That was the New Yorker.
Right. Mm-hmm. A week. Once the FBI has done their interviews, they send it back to the Senate. And if they want further interviews, they'll sit down with Senator McConnell and see what we can work out. So we had a deal for a week. We limited the interviews to 3 people named by Dr. Ford and Ms. Ramirez, and we'll see what the FBI finds.
And it's now been expanded out, by the way. The president said...
No, it's not. This is a request by the Senate. So nobody asked to do Ms.
Ramirez. Yeah.
Ramirez.
Or Julie Swetnick.
No, nobody asked for that. Not one Democrat asked a question. The senators in question did not feel that was necessary. It's an accusation on his face that makes no sense. So let me go over it again. The Dr. Ford witnesses, Mark Judge, Leland, and PJ, right?
Right.
And Ms. Ramirez. That's it. do it within a week, report back to the Senate, and we'll move forward.
NBC News just ran this interview. Not only was one person dead, said the other person said they never heard of her. She literally changed her story. Remember, she was saying that there was systematically, almost every weekend. Those are her words.
I can take care of this in about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
What reasonable person would go to a party, witness drugging of women, gang raping of women, and go back 9 more times?
And boys lined up.
Yeah, and go back 9 more times and never tell anybody.
And tonight she said, well, I didn't say that he put the drugs in the punch, but he was near the punch.
Well, the FBI...
Why does NBC run this?
Well, NBC, here's the biggest offense to me. They've been a co-conspirator in the destruction of Kavanaugh from my point of view. There was an anonymous letter received by Cory Gardner, the senator from Colorado, with no return address, no information, just a letter accusing Brett Kavanaugh of assaulting somebody in a restaurant in 1998 in Colorado.
Right.
Cory hands it to the committee. Somebody on the Democratic side leaked that letter. It got on the NBC Nightly News, the 4th allegation. Do you think they would have done that?
There's a 5th, by the way, in Rhode Island. That was debunked also.
Okay. Would you think NBC would have done that if this had been a Democratic male nominee?
What if it was Tom Brokaw?
All I can say is that their journalist integrity has been destroyed over this case.
All right.
Regarding this case.
It's a very tight margin in the Senate. And you've got Jeff Flake. Who knows what Jeff Flake's going to do? Let's be honest. And then who knows what Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins are going to do? Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
You fall 1 vote short.
Okay, number one, I don't think we will. Let me tell you why. I don't think we're going to find anything new from this supplemental FBI investigation to take Jeff from yes to no. I think Senator Murkowski and Senator Collins want to make sure that the FBI did their homework to check the committee's work, that our work was good. I think that's what this is all about. No more, not expanding it to all this crazy stuff. Now, what would happen if something really weird did occur and we're 1 vote short? Here's what I would tell the president. I would appeal the verdict of the Senate to the ballot box. This good man should not be destroyed. If you legitimize this process by 1 vote short, woe be unto the next person. I'd hate to be the next person nominated. I would feel horrible that we destroyed Kavanaugh. So what would I do? I would renominate him, and I would take this case to the American people, and I'd ask voters in Indiana, in Missouri, and North Dakota, and other places where Trump won, saying who he would nominate if he got to be president, and see if the voters want to appeal the verdict of their senator.
So if you're saying if you fall 1 vote short, you're saying
I would appeal the case to the American people
for this election in 36 days.
I would tell
the president should renominate.
It's up to the president. But one, you would be legitimizing the destruction of a horrible person. I mean, a horrible process and a good person. You'd be legitimizing the worst tactics I've seen.
So in other words, this would be the American people's referendum. This would be a referendum.
This would be an appeal from a political body to the people who put us here, and see if these Trump states that elected President Trump to do exactly what he's doing on cutting taxes and appointing conservative judges, if they're okay with the decision of their senator. I don't think we're going to get there. I think we're going to get 50 plus. But if we fell 1 vote short for the good of the nation, I would appeal this to the people of the country and let them have a say.
Senator, thank you for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Michelle Malkin, David Limbaugh, Newt Gingrich, a lot more straight ahead from D.C., the swamp, straight ahead. All right, joining us now with reaction to all the day's breaking news and much more, the host of Michelle Malkin Investigates, CRTV. Michelle Malkin, the author, by the way, a brand new book, and I'm going to be releasing on FoxNews.com my review of this book because David Limbaugh has so inspired me in my life. I'm a baby compared to him in terms of the knowledge. Jesus is risen. Paul and the early church. It's just out tomorrow. My friend, David Limbaugh, yeah, he's done legal work for me like everybody else because I'm in a lot of legal trouble all the time, apparently. Let me start, David, with you. And I break down in every single case here. There's no corroboration. We watched Julie Swetnick tonight literally reverse herself on key details that she made in a statement that a lawyer released last week. The same thing with Ms. Ramirez. We have problems with her story. We read all of the inconsistencies of Professor Ford's story, and again, no corroboration there. Are we getting rid of due process and presumption of innocence now?
Well, obviously, this isn't a criminal proceeding where those guarantees attach. But as Jonathan Turley said, they still apply by analogy. It's a tradition in this country that people who are accused of these kinds of activities should get a presumption of innocence, and the accuser should have to produce evidence or credible evidence. And you know, nobody's denying that. Well, some people are denying. I don't deny the sincerity of Dr. Ford, but it seems like she's troubled, and there are some inconsistencies in her testimony. But I'm not even, my quarrel isn't with Dr. Ford, who I believe is in good faith. My quarrel is with the Democrats who are lying in wait to ambush any nominee who is a constitutionalist, because they want judges on the Supreme Court, justices, who will legislate their political liberal agenda. And it's horrendous. They have no moral or ethical standing. And so my real thrust here is for feckless conservatives, feckless Republicans, naive Republicans, accommodating Republicans, to realize why President Trump is so popular. It is because a feckless conservatism is an impotent conservatism. We are in an existential war or struggle, or whatever you want to call it, for the future of this country, and the Democrats are relentlessly pursuing their agenda. They will do anything they can to thwart President Trump's appointments. This idea that they're doing this to find the facts is just ridiculous. Go ahead.
Let me bring in Michelle. The problem here is guilt by accusation. I've been very critical, as Michelle at times you have been, of the Republican Party. But honestly, they took this with the proper seriousness that this topic deserves. They were very professional, as they should have been with Professor Ford. But if she identifies an eyewitness and the eyewitness contradicts what she says, that is just problematic, without saying anything about her personally at all. We cannot assume that people are guilty knowing that this is a tactic that is used in Supreme Court nominations and in political campaigns, often by people that don't care about the truth.
The radical and extreme left, particularly radical feminists, exploit the fact that Republicans act in good faith. And we have to stop tiptoeing around this. Timing, matter, motives, and manner all are important in judging the credibility and the strength of these kinds of accusations. Every day in America, innocent men of all races, backgrounds, socioeconomic status are falsely accused of sexual assault and rape, and they can never, ever get their names back. Many of them have been successful in getting themselves exonerated after being falsely convicted. It takes 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And whatever civil settlements that they can finally win after losing their freedom and losing their lives and reputations can never compensate for the loss, the devastating loss that they and their families suffer. And so that is why rape, of course, is a very serious crime, but so is lying about it. And until there's criminal liability for it, this is going to keep happening over and over again, Sean.
In every case, there are inconsistencies. Every case, there's no corroboration to the people that they say were there, which happened again on NBC News tonight. Let me ask you both this. Yes. Lindsey Graham, I think, had a pretty good idea. I think he was really suggesting tonight that if the Republicans fall short here, and Flake or Collins or Murkowski go with the Democrats, he's basically saying, let the American people vote on this very topic and basically let President Trump renominate, if you will, Judge Kavanaugh, and then it then becomes a referendum. David, do you like that idea? I like
possibly.
it.
I do like it, but it depends on what this prolonged investigation adduces. Now, what if Trump appoints someone else? If he really gets taken out and he appoints someone else, I'm telling you, they'll attack him. It's like blood to a shark. It'll be a feeding frenzy. They'll be encouraged by this ambush, and they'll do it again.
We'll
they
never
are not
get
in good faith. And like Michelle said,
Michelle will give you the last word tonight.
Yeah.
this is an existential crisis, and every time that voters have a chance to weigh in on it at the ballot box, they absolutely should do that, because it could happen to you next. And if we don't draw the line right now, it's going to embolden the social justice mob, not just to go after high-profile Supreme Court nominees, but your father, your grandfather, your uncle, your son.
No corroboration, inconsistencies, very troubling. No due process, no presumption of innocence. This is scary. All right. Thank you both for being with us. David, I'm going to put up tomorrow my FoxNews.com article on your new book. It's amazing. That's one short word. When we come back, the latest on the FBI investigation. Ed Henry is in studio with us. Newt Gingrich joins us from our nation's capital as we continue. Yeah, we're right here in the middle of the sewer where it's all happening. We're glad you're with us. All right, so where do things stand with the FBI and the background checks this hour with Judge Kavanaugh? Joining us now with more, Fox News Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry. Well, I thought you were in this studio, but you have your own studio. I see.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. No, we're separate, Hannity. Here's the bottom line. President Trump is pushing back today on what he is essentially calling fake news. The idea, there were various reports over the weekend that he's restricting the FBI probe of Judge Kavanaugh. He said absolutely not, that the FBI is moving quickly and intensively, and he's staying out of the way. In fact, they started their work Friday after the Senate compromise, and the president says they worked through the weekend. In fact, we learned a short time ago, Kavanaugh friend Mark Judge has already talked to the FBI, though his lawyer says they have not completed that. He's going to talk some more. Remember, he has already said he doesn't remember anything about Dr. Ford's allegations. The Senate deal by Republican Jeff Flake and Democrat Chris Coons led to a one-week pause so that they could focus on what was called current and credible allegations, like the charge from Dr. Ford, not new ones, with a deadline for the FBI this coming Friday. But Coons cracked the door open to expanding this, saying he cannot control new allegations. Sure enough, other unverified charges have been popping up tonight. A Washington Post story quoting a former Yale classmate saying that Kavanaugh was a violent drunk. The White House tonight releasing long statements from two of his classmates saying that is grossly untrue. Republican Mitch McConnell charged that Democrats are trying to move the goalposts beyond Friday so they can keep investigating Kavanaugh. Sure enough, Democrat Richard Blumenthal suggested this investigation should go on longer. He falsely charged that the White House is micromanaging the FBI probe. So the president, at a Rose Garden News conference, fired back. He said that's not true. He said he'll do what the Senate wants in terms of this playing out. And he ripped into Blumenthal by noting he lied about his service in Vietnam. Sean?
All right, Ed Henry in Washington joining us now with reaction. He's the author of the New York Times bestseller, Trump's America, The Truth About Our Nation's Great Comeback, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. In every case, you have inconsistencies. Now, tonight was glaring in this Hannity client of his, and no corroboration for the very people that they said would corroborate.
Yes.
That's a problem.
I'll take you off for 30 seconds away from this. All of us should recognize in the last 24 hours, President Trump has won an enormous victory with Canada and Mexico. In the middle of all this noise.
That's a good point.
Big things are happening to create lots of new jobs, to keep the economy going, because the president's delivering. He's getting results. I just want to do that brief moment in passing.
It's not insignificant. Honestly, this to me is a real threat. Yeah. One of the foundational principles that we share, all of us. This is why I say it's not Republican or Democrat.
But here's what I don't understand, okay? And you know, I've been at this a long time.
Not a little bit.
They talk about this deal that Coons made. Coons gave up nothing. I mean, Republicans sometimes have this passion for being stupid. Flake got nothing out of Coons. Nothing. So Coons plays this game. Oh, we're really bipartisan. Let me see how I can rip you off again. And Republicans sit around and go, oh, yeah, would you please rip me off a little bit, because I feel so much better when you take advantage of me. I mean, people, there's a reason people get fed up with this stuff. Lindsey Graham, who you had on a while ago, is the most effective guy on the Judiciary Committee, told the truth. And I think the American people got to stand up and say they don't want a country that is dominated by these kind of people. And I think it's a really serious threat.
What did you think of Lindsey's idea that if they fall a vote short, there should be a referendum election then on this issue? But the
American people, it's a good idea.
And the president would renominate, maybe, perhaps.
I think it's a good for this reason. The Alabama senator, who is supposedly not a liberal, has come out and is going to vote with the left. You have Donnelly representing the vice president's home state, is going to vote with the left. You're probably going to have Heidkamp in a state which Republicans have carried 16 out of the last 17 presidential campaigns, is probably going to vote with the left. And you got Tester in a state we carried 15 out of 17.
You mentioned Manchin?
Well, I think Manchin's going to vote for Kavanaugh.
Well, but it is interesting.
I'll tell you what, if Manchin doesn't vote for Kavanaugh, they definitely should bring Kavanaugh back up, because after the election, Manchin will have disappeared.
Yeah. You know, one of the problems, we've gotten too used to, and I bring this, I warn this audience, my radio audience, every 2 and 4 years. Racist, sexist, misogynist, homophobe, xenophobe, Islamophobe, dirty air, water, kill children, kill grandma, throw her over the cliff. I watched you go through this. I was there. I saw it all. But there's a certain embracing of slander now where it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whose family is hearing this. It doesn't matter what they're saying.
They score points with their crazed friends. The more vicious you are, the more your friends celebrate you. The nastier you are, the more your friends celebrate you. I mean, that's what people need to understand. We're in a moment, this election this fall is about 2 Americas. It's about an America that thinks bullying you in a restaurant, bullying you in an elevator, harassing you, destroying you, smearing you, shaming you in front of your children is fine because they're morally pure.
So I never hear a single positive agenda item that's going to benefit the American people from the Democrats. This is what I hear, that they want to impeach Trump. They want endless investigations. They want to keep Obamacare, which has been a disaster. They want to get rid of ICE, open borders, and they want the crumbs back. They want the tax cuts back that they call crumbs. But there's such crumbs, they want them back. How do Republicans, defeat history in the sense that it's only happened 3 times in the last 100 years? Party gets power in the White House and then wins seats or holds on to power in the midterms.
Well, the same way we won in 16. We get more votes where it matters. I mean, the objective fact is, and I'm going to go out on a limb here. I did this with you in 16. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think election night this year will be worse for liberals than 2016. I think they're a state of shock. This is the Democratic Party now. For example, Gavin Newsom, the candidate for governor of California, wants to have government-run health care to pay for health care for illegal immigrants.
10 million illegal immigrants.
That's this year. Yeah. But when the word goes out across the planet, go to California and get free health care. How many people, every person who gets sick on the planet is going to be told, get to California. They want to take care of you.
Well,
I don't think that, I think those kind of policies are so unsustainable.
Bob Menendez is in a 2-point deficit in New Jersey.
And by the way, the most important recent indicator, which the lead media doesn't want to look at, is we won a seat in South Texas we've not had in 139 years. It's 63% Hispanic. Yeah. And the minute they learned that the Democrats favored tax-paid abortion, they just left. They said, we're not with you.
If this doesn't awaken the base of the conservative movement, Republican Party, Trump supporters, I don't know what will.
But it is waking them. I think I had a friend say to me today they had never seen as many conservatives as angry as they are now. Because it's when you look at Kavanaugh and you look at his 2 daughters and you look at his wife and you think, these bad human beings are willing to do this to this family.
Without any corroboration at all.
Right.
Scary. Mr. Speaker, good to see you. It's great to be in your hometown, the Swamp. Although I guess now Italy would be your hometown, the Holy See, but thank you.
Here we go.
All right, when we come back, we stole his studio, but he's coming back. Tucker Carlson, he's going to weigh in on this fishing expedition on Judge Kavanaugh, as a lot more as we continue from Washington, D.C. Please stay with us. All right, despite getting the White House to agree to an FBI investigation, Democrats have not slowed down their attacks on Judge Kavanaugh. Joining me now with reaction, well, he's the author of a brand new book, Ship of Fools, How a Selfish Ruling Class is Bringing America to the Brink of Revolution. It's our own Tucker Carlson, who we see every night. Congrats on the book, number 1.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me use your studio, number 2. Number 3. These are really scary times, and I think your book is impacting that. I'm really worried if it's guilt by accusation now.
Of course. I mean, it's not a question of one party beating another in an election. It's a question of whether the basic ideas upon which all of what we have are founded are swept away in this revolution. So free speech, due process, the meritocracy. I mean, the things that have made our culture and our economy and our government possible for 240 years, these are all being blown up right now. And what's so fascinating, the reason I wrote the book, is it is liberals making arguments against the things that they defended for 100 years. Free speech, colorblindness. They're attacking those very concepts. So, like, the ACLU existed so that you could say what you thought was true without being punished. The very people who ran the ACLU and sent the money are now trying to get you fired for disagreeing with them. Liberals fought against segregation. Good for them. Now they're holding segregated graduation ceremonies at Harvard. What?
Let me ask you this. See,
in every sphere.
Tucker, serious allegations like this, there are evil predators in this world. There are.
Yes. Needless to say.
And I think the Republicans have handled it with the appropriate seriousness. But if you have inconsistencies, look at NBC, the allegation of Julie Swetnick. She's backtracking on very key details. She was describing the systematic, almost weekly drugging of young girls and gang raping them. And then she's like, well, I saw Judge Kavanaugh near the punch bowl. And one person she gave the name of is dead, and another one said, I'd never heard of her.
Well, it's ludicrous. It's ludicrous.
Why was that covered?
Well, if you want to discredit legitimate claims of sexual abuse and discredit the survivors of sexual abuse, take obviously ludicrous claims seriously, which is exactly what they're doing. I went to 9 gang rapes in a row, public gang rapes, and on the 10th, I was raped, but I never filed a police report or told my friends. It's not plausible. There are plausible claims of abuse.
She's claiming she did speak to one, they're looking into it, to one officer.